everyone. Welcome to this webinar, Lessons Learned and Good Practices from the Implementation of CBIT Uganda, a webinar from the CBIT platform. My name is Ana Cardoso. I work in UNEP-DTU partnership. I am the moderator for today's webinar, and I greet you from Copenhagen in Denmark. Before we move to the main content of the webinar, I want to share with you a couple of housekeeping information. The webinar is going to be about 1 hour and 20 minutes. It will include time for questions and answers at the end. You can ask questions at any time. Please use the panel of GoToWebinar that you have typically standing on the right side of your screen, where there is an option to ask questions. In case you cannot stay until the end, note that all the materials and the recording of the webinar will be available online in a few days on the CBIT platform. So you will be able to revisit them if you want. And we have other webinars and information there, so you may want to check the CBIT platform in the events section. I would like to inform you that given that we are based in the European Union, we comply with the European Union General Data Protection Act. Means that your personal data, like your name and your email, is processed and stored here, and all your rights pursuant to this Data Protection Act are respected. You have full access to the data that you have shared with us, and at any time you can request that data is deleted or rectified. For access of further information about this, please contact my colleagues that are listed here in this slide. Today's webinar, we have a very interesting agenda, and we're going to learn about the experience of Uganda in the implementation of their CBIT project, and we have contributions from many from the CBIT Uganda team. We were hoping to have opening remarks by Mr. Bob Natifu from the Climate Change Directorate of Uganda. Instead, we will have Ms. Irina Chekwoti from the Ministry of Water and Environment of Uganda giving this opening remarks soon. Afterwards, we'll have remarks from Conservation International. We will have Charity, Victor Essendi, and Peter Alele. And then we have the main presentation that's going to be by Mrs. Feli Mujizi about the CBIT Uganda experience, the results, the challenges, the lessons, and recommendations. I will now ask Ms. Irina Chekwoti to unmute herself and to give some opening remarks to this webinar on behalf of the Ministry of Water and Environment of Uganda.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and hello everybody, all protocol observed. First of all, my name is Irene Chekwoti, just to say it again, Senior Climate Change Officer Mitigation from the Climate Change Department of Water and Environment Ministry, Uganda. So allow me to try to put on the big shoes of my boss, Mr. Bob Natif, who is a commissioner for the Climate Change Department, by reading the opening remarks during this webinar on lessons learned and good practices from the implementation of CBIT project in Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I wish to express my gratitude to the Global Environment Facility for funding the CBIT project in Uganda. I also thank our implementing agencies, the Conservation International and Africa Innovations Institute, for effectively working with us to implement the CBIT project. I cannot forget to sincerely thank our partners, the sector teams, for the great cooperation and hard work exhibited during the project implementation. This project would not have been successful without having you all on board. Briefly, for your information, the Climate Change Department was established as a means to strengthen the implementation of UNFCCC and its Kyoto Protocol, and now the Paris Agreement. It is the institution responsible for coordination of national climate change actions in different sectors, including the creation of awareness among various stakeholders to enable them internalize their roles and responsibilities under the Convention and its Kyoto Protocol, as well as the Paris Agreement. And on the 2nd of October 2019, Uganda submitted our initial biennial update report to the UNFCCC, and the technical analysis was recently concluded. The report clearly indicated steady rise in the country's emissions, increasing from 64,000 gigatons in 2005 to 77,000 gigatons in 2015. And the air sector has remained the most significant source of emissions, accounting up to 86%, followed by the energy sector. And the GHG inventory of the Uganda's initial biennial update report covers the period of 2000 to 2015. 2005 to 2015, beg your pardon. The capacity building needs identified during the development of this report are enormous. And specifically on GHG inventory, the outstanding needs include the technical capacity on data collection procedures, disaggregation of sectoral data, the use of IPCC software to estimate emissions, QA, QC, and archiving procedures in all the key emitting sectors, understanding the 2006 IPCC guidelines and the good practice guidelines are some of the gaps. And besides that, we have been experiencing challenges to do with data sharing. Sectors, of course, collect data for their mandated roles, and they are not obligated to share with the lead agency, which is the Climate Change Department, that consolidates the national GHG inventory. Also, even if data is shared, it is not in the format that is compatible with the IPCC software, which is used for GHG emissions estimations. Reason because they use their respective parameters. And why am I bringing in all these narratives? It's basically to enable you understand where the country has been standing prior to CBIT project implementation. And now what has CBIT done to improve the GHGI MRV situation? Well, Dr. Feli, who is the project manager of CBIT Project Uganda, will make a comprehensive presentation on that. But allow me to highlight some of the key outputs of the project that Uganda will rely on to contribute to enhancement of GHG inventory MRV situation in the country. One of them is the Interministerial Cooperation Agreement and MOUs on GHG data collection, processing, and transmission. Now, this is very important for us as a country, and specifically the Climate Change Department that must deliver on the GHG, national GHG inventory. Sectors right from top management now has a responsibility to share the requisite data, because the MOUs were signed by the top leadership of the different institutions, which are key emitting sectors of the GHG. And the other output, which Uganda sees to be very instrumental, is a technical guide on GHG data sharing that leaves the sectors with no excuse then. I mean, internally, they can make use of the technical guide to develop or update their inventories. More so, they can utilize the IT equipment that the project procured for them. Remember, the IT equipment includes the laptops and so on, so they can make use of that to do the updating and development of their respective inventories. And the other key output as well is the activity data collection template, which the project developed. This will greatly support the sectors who are our data providers during data collection, because they can now enter data easily in the template following the highlighted parameters. This shall make the work of the CCD, the Climate Change Department work, quite easy. The other one is training on GHG inventory, MRV, and IPCC requirements. Capacity building has always been our challenge, but with the CBIT activity, where there was a long period of time training on GIGI and MRV, including IPCC requirements. It was close to 3-month training, and I realized how exciting the experience was to the sectors and as well to the climate change department. The lockdown was a blessing in disguise in this case. Initially, we used to have 2 days of training, 3 days of training, but this time we had a long period of time really to have all the participants concentrate on the content of what really makes up the GAG inventory, the MRV, and the IPCC requirements, since it took close to 3 months. And also there was a motivation because participants were expected to do the tests, the assignments, and also at the end of it were to be awarded certificates. And certificates, of course, were separated into 2. Those that have really completed and they are passed, and those who have just been given certificates of awards. So it was really such an exciting training, and this created a huge impact on us as the climate change department, the sectors who are our data providers, private sector organizations, CSOs. It was such an exciting training. And so we shall ride on this capacity even during the preparation of the ongoing TNC, which is the third national communication and other related work. The other part was training on the integration of gender in greenhouse gas inventory and MRV operations. This was such an eye-opener. I mean, there was always a question on how do you bring in gender aspect in data or figures of GAG inventory. The training demystified that, and now I'm sure our data providers understand how to identify gender entry points on the GAGI MRV work. Also, the Climate Change Department of Uganda as a country has a responsibility to report on the gender the government of Uganda has a responsibility to report back to the UNFCCC on the actions which are undertaken on gender following the enhanced Lima work program on gender. So there was a gender action plan that was developed. And so some of the works that was developed under the CBIT project, specifically on the gender aspect, have really helped Uganda to contribute to its reporting to the UNFCCC. In fact, you can visit the UNFCCC submitted gender reports and you'll be able to recognize that some of the actions reported are the works of the CBIT project. However, that said, there are 2 key areas which must be consistent if the work done under this project is to survive. I mean, that is to do with sustainability. And one of them being key is continuous capacity building in this area. This area is quite technical and needs capacity building to be continuous, to keep people on track, to keep all respective partners on track. And secondly, funding. All these things are supported with finances. So funding is one of those that must always remain consistent so that sustainability of these works are realized. And just before I can conclude, I wish to inform you that Uganda is at the initial process of updating her NDC, and the updated inventory developed with the support of the CBIT project, that is from 2016 to 2019, will be very key in the baseline determination of this process. And in conclusion, the CBIT work will improve Uganda's ability to comply with transparency requirements of the Paris Agreement. We also hope that the provision in the Uganda's climate change bill that mandates sectors to report their GHG emissions to the climate change department will come into force soon. And the MOUs that were developed and signed during this project will supplement on this. Allow me now declare this webinar open for God and my country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Irene. Thank you for these opening remarks. I will just move forward and now please ask Conservation International to go ahead and give the remarks to continue this webinar.
My name is Charity Nalianya, and I'm the Manager Africa Conservation International GEF agency. Basically, I perform the function of the implementing agency. I oversee all the GEF projects in Africa that are implemented through Conservation International, and these include the CBIT Uganda project. Currently, the Conservation International has a large portfolio of CBIT projects, totaling to 11 projects. And we successfully completed the CBIT Kenya project last year, 2019, and shared very good lessons also on our webinar, which is also available online. And so as part of my role, I also oversaw implementation of the CBIT Uganda project. In a nutshell, the CBIT Uganda project is implemented by Conservation International as the GEF agency. The executing agency is the Ministry of Water and Environment through the Climate Change Department. And the Climate Change Department, the Uganda Climate Change Department, worked very closely with Vital Signs and the Africa Innovations Institute. Today, we have Madam Irene Chepoti, who just opened the webinar, representing the Climate Change Directorate. She's also the CBIT focal point for this the CBIT Uganda project. And we also have my colleagues, Peter Lele and Victor Zendi, who represent Vital Signs. And we also have Feli Tusime, who is the lead from the Africa Innovations Institute, and she'll detail more about the project. I now invite Victor to give some remarks, Victor and Peter.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, depending on the time zone, and good evening on others. I greet you from Nairobi. My name is Victor Esendi, and I work at Conservation International Africa Field Division. I provide technical support and oversight to the CBIT projects in Africa, and I would just like to give brief remarks regarding the CBITs and the Paris Climate Agreement. The Paris Agreement on Climate Change rests upon a foundation of nationally determined contribution NDCs, which were originally submitted by parties to the convention in 2015 and formally adopted on November 4th, 2016, as the agreement entered into force. And each NDC represents the national plans and pledges individual countries have made to meet the universal goal of keeping global temperature increase to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. But the question then is, why CBIT? The Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency, CBIT, was created at the request of parties to help strengthen the institutional and technical capacity of non-Annex 1 countries to meet the enhanced transparency requirements as defined in Article 13 of the Paris Agreement. And it has three main aims: strengthen national institutions for transparency-related activities in line with national priorities, provide relevant tools, training, and assistance for meeting the provisions stipulated in Article 13 of the agreement, and 3, assist in improvement of transparency over time. And the Uganda project that we are sharing lessons today is modeled along the CBIT aims, and it has 3 components: support establishing and strengthening institutional arrangements for robust GHG emission inventory and MRV system. Component 2, build capacity of key stakeholders to collect, process, and feed data into GHG emissions inventory system. And 3, test and pilot GHG emission inventory and MRV. Through the CBIT project Uganda, we managed to develop and sign MOUs which put Uganda closer to ensuring deeper cooperation between the CCD and other NDC sectors: agriculture, energy, transport, waste, and volume, hence meeting the first goal of CBIT. And secondly, we, through this project, supported also procurement and of equipment and training, which is in line with goal 2 and 3 of the CBIT. one of the key lessons, just as I conclude, is that effective collaboration with the government of Uganda through CCD, Ministry of Water and Environment, made this project a success, and we are glad to share the experience as will be shared by Dr. Feli. And lastly, we are grateful to the JEF for availing the funds for the project and supporting Uganda to meet its obligations as a party to the convention and signatory to the Paris Agreement. I think in terms of the project implementation, Dr. Feli, who was the project manager on this project, would share much more. I thank you and invite Dr. Peter to give his remark.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you for all the previous speakers for your comments. I will offer my brief remarks by challenging all the participants of the webinar that as you listen, you try to think about these three questions. One, what can $1 million do? Two, what can it do with about a year or so of effective implementation? And the third one is, what can $1 million do for a large country like Uganda? This project that you'll hear about in the presentation demonstrates the impact of such an investment over a very limited period of time. Conservation International wants to position itself as a strong partner to national governments in the region and to offer our expertise and technical skills towards those partnerships. As Charity said, we right now have a portfolio of 11 CBIT projects across Africa, soon to be 12. And the implementation of these projects is only successful with strong partnerships, working together, investing together under very unusual circumstances, as in the case of Uganda, where we went through the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic to deliver a very successful project. We are here together because we work together, we listen to one another, and we contributed our best towards the delivery of this project. I therefore take this opportunity to thank the government of Uganda, the Ministry of Water and Environment, the Climate Change Directorate in Uganda. I also thank the Africa Innovations Institute, and I thank all the key partners in this project for participating in our trainings, for contributing their ideas, their expertise, and for contributing their data towards the successful execution of this project. Conservation International remains keen to continue partnering with Uganda and supporting her in our SDGs and climate action ambitions. We look forward to more exciting partnerships in the future. I thank you all.
Thank you very much all, Charity, Victor, Peter. We have now a presentation. I would like to remind our participants that to please send us your questions. You can send the questions anytime. We will entertain the questions at the end. We will have about 15 minutes for that. In case there are more questions than we can take during that time, we will strive to get the answers to those questions, and we publish afterwards together with the materials of this slide. So now it comes the presentation. I will invite Ms. Feli Mujizi to tell us about the CBIT Uganda experience, and see you afterwards at the Q&A.
Thank you, Anna, and good afternoon and evening and morning to all of you. My name is Feli Tusime. I'm the project manager of CBIT Uganda. I'll make this presentation on behalf of the project management unit and on behalf of the Uganda team, CBIT team. And the project management unit was composed of myself and as the manager, Bernard Fungo is the greenhouse gas expert, Elizabeth Ahumza, our climate scientist, Professor William Otim Nape, the technical advisor, and Prosi Ogwal, the accountant. So CBIT Uganda aimed to strengthen the capacity of institutions in Uganda to comply with the transparency requirements of the Paris Agreement, and was structured with 3 different components, aiming at establishing institutional arrangements for a robust national greenhouse gas inventory and MRV system as component 1, building capacity of the stakeholders to collect, process, and feed greenhouse gas emissions data in the system, and to test and pilot the inventory and the MRV system. Like you've heard from the previous speakers, it has been funded by the Global Environment Facility through Conservation International and implemented by the Ministry of Water, the Climate Change Department, and the Africa Innovations Institute. So we've worked with a number of ministries, departments and agencies, government agencies, as well as the civil society and organizations and academia. Here I present the different sectors that we have worked with, of course, with the Climate Change Department as the lead agency. We aimed at working originally with 5 sectors: transport, agriculture, energy, and waste. And along the process of our implementation, since we are aimed at demand-driven activities, we got an application from the Ministry of Trade and Industry requesting to be part of this project. So the request was honored, and we got the Ministry of Trade on board, and they also benefited from these engagements. So under component 1, we had to, as part of strengthening the institutional arrangement, we had to ensure that there is frequent interaction across the sectors, and this came through communication in many ways, including frequent meetings, at least 1 meeting in each quarter, discussing and sharing information and plans in regarding to execution of the project. We had a number of stakeholder engagement, which covered government and non-state actors, academia, and other stakeholders, including some development partners. We had interaction, especially during the training. So we had social media platforms like the WhatsApp groups for the different sectors. And of course, the MRV platform was developed to facilitate information and data sharing, as well as general communication. And of recent, as part of an exit strategy, we also explored having a Uganda greenhouse gas inventory and MRV experts network. And we're already interacting even towards the end of this project, so that we keep the teams together. As earlier on mentioned by my supervisors, we have supported the development of frameworks which will support robust inventory, and the inter-ministerial cooperation agreement has been signed so far by the 4 ministries, and we have 5 MOUs so far signed, and a technical guide which will guide the process of data collection and sharing, greenhouse gas data collection and sharing. So these are the institutions: National Forest Authority, National Environment Management Authority, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Ministry of Works and Transport, Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industries and Fisheries, who have so far signed a MOU with the Ministry of Water and Environment. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative are already having the MOU at the PSC's desk, and I'm sure by the end of this year we could have another MOU joining the 5. And we have 3 CSOs who already appended their signatures to the MOUs, and these await finalizing the signing process. And other CSOs and academia were also interested, only that by the time of our closure, we had not gotten more than 3 already submitted and signed. So all through our project implementation, we did our best to engender the process, and 5 gender focal points were established in 5 sectors. That is agriculture, forestry, energy, transport, and waste. And we conducted at the beginning of the project a gender sensitization workshop and covered both government and civil society organization. A number of individuals, as in from the different ministries and departments, participated in a write shop where they were trained on development and publication of information on transparency requirements with a gender lens, as in how do you write engendered reports, especially like for climate reporting. And through that, these activities, a procedural manual on generating gender disaggregated information for greenhouse gas inventory was developed, and it's available to guide engendering the entire process from data collection up to reporting. So as part of the capacity building, a number of things were covered, and some have been mentioned before, and they included procurement of equipment, development of and standardization of data collection protocols, sensitization and training of officials on greenhouse gas and MRV, and exposure trips, some exposure trips to climate events. So here we are having over 40 MRV equipment, and these are being handed over to 5 sectors and sector institutions, the Climate Change Department and Africa Innovations Institute. These equipment are well marked and inscribed and registered, and we have a list of the details available. For the tools, we have some tools from 4 different sectors developed, and some were revised, as in they were existing, but we had to just modify them to capture greenhouse gas indicators in the tool, in the data collection tools. So for agriculture sector, we focused on the livestock census tool, which was revised, and this tool is ready for use, as in for the next livestock census. Had it not been for the pandemic, I think the census would have already ended by now. So for the energy sector, we developed tools because here there was need for development of tools, and we came up with a stationary combustion tool and fugitive emissions. The same applies for the transport sector, where we developed the mobile combustion tool covering the different subsectors. And for the waste sector, we did revision of the existing tools to incorporate greenhouse gas indices, such that the ones which are now present are standardized to meet the IPCC requirements. We did not work on the full tool because when we did a comparison, they were a bit advanced compared to the other sectors. So our focus was on where there was most need. So this is just a bit of a snapshot of some of the tools. But for details, if we went to the folder, we'll get the details of what each tool looks like, as in these templates. And these are available even on our data sharing platforms. Regarding training, over 80 officials, both from government and non-state institutions, were sensitized on greenhouse gas inventory and domestic MRV, as well as IPCC requirements. So out of all these, we managed to graduate a total of 62 participants, 35% of which were women. And we are very happy about that. They are the national greenhouse gas experts. These graduated with the certificates, and the certificates have 2 pages, the front page with the details on the left, and then the back page with the details of the sponsorship, the training institutions, and the details of what the course covered. It was very intensive, and as earlier mentioned, it was covered in 3 months. And it was hands-on, not just training for theory, but with practice, because we came up with a number of products, which I will mention shortly. So a Uganda MRV portal was developed to facilitate data sharing, data and information sharing, and this, upon finalizing the project activities, was also handed over to the government, Ministry of Water and Environment, so that it's available for other users as well. Here I present our focus. Like you can see, there are already systems in place, like the project was saying, we have to strengthen. So I wanted to indicate where our major focus was. It was at the sector level, and we covered 6 sectors, though the target was originally 5. And we hope that this will continue. This capacity, like earlier on indicated, will be able to support the other existing systems to support data compilation and training as well. Sorry, and reporting. Some of the information and knowledge products we got included policy briefs, status reports for the different sectors, and these we shared with sector teams, and some reports we presented in form of fact sheets. So we explored different means of communication and sharing information to our diverse audience. Other publications included, stakeholder roles and responsibilities, some products from consultancies during the project execution. All these reports and materials are available on our websites, and Climate Change Department, CBIT link, the African Innovations Institute website, and Global Coordination Platform. So the third component was all about piloting, testing out the inventory. And like I've told you before, the training was not just theoretical, but it was hands-on and extremely intensive. And as a blessing in disguise, we were in lockdown, which gave a bit of an opportunity for the staff to be available for the time that this training called for. So we were able to develop 6 different sector greenhouse gas inventories, as earlier on communicated by the Commissioner, from the 2016 to the 2019 years. So we have these ready, and I'm sure they will be very vital in the ongoing processes like the NDC, the revision and the development of the 3rd National Communication. So we also developed as a strategy for sustainability, a concept note. This was co-developed with all the partners in all the ministries and the sectors involved in this project. So this, after approval, was submitted to CI for consideration. We also developed some other 2 concept notes, but we did not have enough time to go into detailed discussion and engagement with the sectors. And this is just available in draft form. So through the project, we had a bit of challenges, and we are seeing some opportunities from all these things. As earlier mentioned, and as is known by everyone today, we got this surprise of COVID-19, which limited our activities. We couldn't pilot because of social distancing. We couldn't, as in piloting the tools as had been planned after developing them. So we had wanted to develop at least 3 concept notes, but we only managed to have completed only 1 out of what we had wanted, though the target was 2. And the policy briefs, we have done them remotely, and we also wish to have more engagement. We had wished to have more kind of robust engagement on this and sensitization, up to high level sensitization, to really clearly communicate this need for supporting the greenhouse gas inventory in this aspect of climate action. Of course, the exposure trips were cancelled because of limited international travels. And our engagement, like I've indicated before, with the private sector, we managed to have 3 MOUs signed, and the others we ended with engagement with them. And it takes time to get someone append their signature on an MOU. So somewhere, mixing government and non-state actors was a bit tight, especially during lockdown. So again, sensitization, yes, we're a bit limited on sensitization, because here the physical, workshops and hard copy documents is the norm. So remote working is a bit new, and it was a bit limiting with this COVID challenge. The opportunities we see through this project is, there's a lot of policies, the climate change policy, the different policies, even the ongoing climate change bill, which are there to support greenhouse gas inventory and the MRV development process. So the signed MOUs, like earlier communicated by the commissioner, are very interesting, tool. It's a springboard which will take us where we want to go in this agenda. There's also a lot of enthusiasm on climate change, both in government and the non-state actors, and there's a lot of interest in greenhouse gas activities, especially coming from the mitigation side. And also, like mentioned before, the NDC is currently under revision. So we hope that this inventory, which has been developed with this support, is timely. And the third national communication also was on board all through this, the third national communication team was on board during this inventory process development. So we think the inventory will be vital in the next communication. What are some of the things we learned during our experience implementing the CBIT in Uganda? It's key to engage stakeholders. The partnerships Dr. Aleli was talking about. And this is not just at the point of implementation, at the planning level. It's important for people to know exactly what you're up to so that they give you their support. So it's key to co-design and co-implement, and most important, to domesticate the project, to make it relevant to the local needs, the local priorities. Otherwise, it becomes like a virtual project, something from a distance. But once you have everyone on board, then it's our project, it's for our good, because it's meeting our needs. So we also felt, especially with the fact that we had very little time to deliver a very ambitious project, finding out what is available and asking yourself, how do we support the available structures or ongoing processes, such that you're not starting from scratch as if nothing is existing. So even if it's something small, you can always put another block on that, and then you progressively build on what has been present. So we thought that was a good strategy, and engaging the high-level officers is key, especially when you're going to expect people to give you their time. Because in addition to project implementation, we do appreciate that the staff that we're working with also had their other responsibilities at the desk. So in addition to their normal routine duties, we also would add a bit of other responsibilities, and we got full support because, you know, even their supervisors were aware of the benefit the project is bringing to their respective institutions, but also to the individuals as their career development. So another important thing we learned is, and this was at the beginning of the project, we wanted to know who is doing similar things in Uganda. So we did visits to stakeholders who are supporting the greenhouse gas or MRV. And this is important so that you know exactly to identify synergies, to know what are they doing, how can you support each other. Are there some things you don't have to do because someone else is going to deliver it? And so this synergizing is very important for saving time, and most important also making best use of resources and avoiding duplications of efforts. So an interesting thing we learned also was there's not so much engagement of civil society in some of these activities. And we learned that there was a lot of greenhouse gas data activity data, although many civil society organizations were not even aware that they have activity data from their from the activities they do, as in the data sets they have. They were not so sure if it's actually greenhouse gas data. So we feel strengthening the cooperation with the civil society and academia is key. And there is also not a formal mandate for them to share this information. So you find that we are missing out on that valuable resource. And so sensitization to the non-state actors, as well as formalizing the process of them being able to submit their information and data is key. We noticed, especially at the beginning of the project, that women were not so much involved, as in they were not joining the activities. But after the sensitization workshop, we also noticed that there were relatively few women in the technical positions in the office. So it's either that few women are enrolling for climate science and related subjects, or perhaps they are not maybe supported enough to be up in the high technical positions where this level of engagement is expected. Nonetheless, we think that having the gender focal points in the sectors would kind of boost women engagement in greenhouse gas and MRV activities. It's key to communicate almost all the little details regarding project implementations with the stakeholders. That's the best way of keeping the stakeholders feeling part of the process. And we tried as much as possible to keep in touch, both formally and informally, with our different key sectors especially, and especially through the focal points. The focal points were very, very vital in the success of our activities, because they would link us to their respective teams. And this made our work run smooth. So like I've said, when it comes to communication, we have a diverse audience. Some people really love reading volumes, others want the message in one page or so. And so we try to explore different ways of reporting, including briefs, fact sheets, reports, as well as using different media, including email, hard copy, and other social media platforms. Under management, we knew we had a very ambitious project and very little time. So we thought it was very important to plan ahead of the targets. And we also knew we had limitations for some processes. You can control some things which are completely under your mandate, but if you're relying on other parties, then you've got to know that you have to borrow time in advance. So we did try to target and plan ahead of some of the target to save on time and cost. But some activities we thought are wise to operate parallel, as in like if it is an event of data sharing, you could merge that same event with maybe a quarterly meeting or something like that, such that you're able to achieve the activities in the most efficient manner. Amongst ourselves as a project management unit, we knew we all have our different contracts with the detailed roles, but we also thought we needed each other, so we would sit down together frequently and plan and actually specifically know who is doing what. So like you know what to expect from who. It made it very easy because we would always like be able to know what we can manage to deliver in very specific time frame. And we also thought we kept in touch with our implementing partners as well as the executing agency, and kept like giving them updates as often as possible, both formally and informally, to make sure that you're not stuck because the email, you can't access email. If you can do it on WhatsApp or SMS, you get in touch with Charity, with Victor, with Peter, and it's amazing. They are such reachable. They easily respond in time. So another fact was about tasks. Sometimes you're overwhelmed with work, and instead of sitting down and lamenting over how much a mountain you have to climb, it was practical to delegate. And many of these activities were actually delivered through our partnerships. So like some roles, you just would request the different stakeholders to come and step in. And that's how we managed to do what we have managed to do in this period. We also try to find out what are some of the successes of people who have done similar work with us, and what are some of the challenges they faced, so that we could learn from their experiences. And we're a bit flexible. We try to, I always talked of plan A up to Z. If plan A can't work, let's try plan B and let's try plan C. So somewhere we always, the strategy was we must do something and we must get it done. If A can't do, we try B until. So like that flexibility helped us. For example, we had never envisaged that we would have a lot of things happening online. But when we found ourselves locked down, I assured Conservation International we were going to continue working. And somewhere, I thank all the stakeholders who made this possible. So as a project, we knew we are going, but we also thought it's nice to have something. How would we want to leave this thing post our operations? And so the inventories which were developed are handed over to government, and we know it's available for other users. We also trained staff from the Climate Change Department to manage the Uganda MRV portal, and also link it to the National Integrated MRV tool, which is currently being developed and is going to be integrated, as in it's going to cover all the other types of MRVs. So they are able to link the MRV on emissions to this tool. We developed a concept note like I've earlier communicated, hoping this could also, if successful, support further efforts to capacity building. We've developed reports and briefs, and these are to inform decision-making at the different sector institutions. We've established a network, and I call upon all the members to please keep this network active, communicate and share any information, any updates. We also should keep the CBIT coordination, for example. So yes, I was saying that we have shared reports and our information with other stakeholders whom we think would benefit from knowing what we have done. For example, the GIZ were interested in another project promoting climate smart agriculture, and the UNDP's NDC support program, which is also supporting MRV and inventories in the different sectors. So what we think we could share with as recommendations for the different components. We think we should lobby for the bill to be enacted, and this will kind of support execution of the MOUs which we've just signed. And if we could further engage with non-state actors to complete the MOU signing process, it would be good, because like we've indicated, they have a lot of information that we need for the inventories, and the technical guide which is available could support processes. They would know how to collect, as in both government and non-state actors. We should lobby, I think, in the, and if it's incorporated in the plans and the budgets, then we can know this could be sustained internally. So, of course, another thing is, like, we're urging the CD, once the platform, the MRV tool is fully established, they could keep this, they could guide the sectors on how to continue interacting with the information available, so that there is constant flow of information to guide MRV and other decision-making processes. So we have the established sector focal points and the gender focal points. So we wish that these are continually engaged in the relevant activities, such that, you know, their acquired expertise, that the training on compilation, all those things, they put that expertise to use. Because if they are not used for the activities, their knowledge will lie dormant. But if they are used, then their skills will be further enhanced. So here it's where we propose that it would be nice if the sectors could actually formalize or make formal the roles of the sector focal points and the gender focal points. So under the capacity support, we propose that the national experts should be engaged, like I've said before, in compilations, this routine reports as required by the UNFCCC, because now we have the expertise, unlike in the past. We procured equipment which is available for use, so please use the equipment for climate-related issues, inventories, and MRV support. The sector teams, if like, they could also consider continuous development as suggested by the commissioner. So we had this training online through the Nexus University. So meaning it's possible to actually support further training, even if we are able to acquire resources internally. And also another thing we were thinking is, even the people who have been trained, if you could act as trainers or trainees, and you support other people who were not able to be trained within your respective institutions, it would be good. The gender focal points, it would be nice for you to really ensure that gender is mainstreamed in your respective institutions, especially in regards to greenhouse gas inventory and MRV activities. And please keep in touch through the MRV portal and the global coordination platform, as well as in the networks which have been established. And regarding data collection, this is the last component. We propose that these tools which were standardized and they are available, it would be nice if they are piloted and adopted for use in the routine data collection, but also not only for the government, but if you could share this with this private sector, so that we are getting standardized data from both government and non-state actors. So the MRV portal is available for archiving, And I think we should foster continuous sharing of data and information so that when it's time for reporting, the team for the third national communication don't have to run around different sectors hunting for data and information. If it's centrally located as these systems have been established, that would make life a bit better for everyone. Don't break the existing relationships, as in I think our linkages through this project implementation even brought the sectors closer. So keep interacting closely, and let us also aim at extending our relationships to new partnerships. So this can be through our network that has been established. So like other things I've already mentioned them earlier, and we have a data gap. Many times in many sectors there was need for filling the data gaps, and some of these can be thought through collaborative engagements. Like if we think of collaborative research and proposal development with academia and non-state actors, such that we're able to get resources to support data collection, those kinds of initiatives would be key in supporting data collection and improving our inventory. I do once again appreciate the Global Environment Facility for providing funds to support this project. And we thank Conservation International for all the support at executing this project. We thank our partners, local partners, and Ministry of Water and Environment, whom we worked so closely with, and they guided us and supported us to effect this project. We thank our ministries, departments, and agencies that I've mentioned above, who were able to actually make CBIT Uganda a dream come true. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Feli. We have still one more intervention. It's going to be Miss Irene Chekwoti. She's going to tell us about the linkages between the CBIT Uganda project and the CBIT platform. Again, I remind you to send us your questions because we will start immediately after with the question and answer session. Thank you.
Yes, moderator, thank you very much. So just before I show my screen, or as I show my screen, allow me to just give a brief background to the CBIT Global Coordination Platform. So the CBIT Global Coordination Platform was established to support the management of the capacity building initiative for transparency in line with the programming directions for CBIT. And the platform brings together practitioners from different countries to enable coordination, identify needs and gaps in national transparency systems, share lessons learned through regional and global meetings, enable knowledge sharing to facilitate transparency enhancements, and to track progress in the enhancement of countries' capacity to meet enhanced transparency requirements. So basically, the CBIT Global Coordination Platform is a web-based portal, and it's accessible through a link. For those who are not focal points, you can just Google, go to www.cbitplatform.org. You should be able to access the CBIT Global Coordination Platform. The portal is accessible to everyone. However, only country focal persons have the right to add and edit country projects. The users can select a country from the map on the home screen or use the search box to view projects of interest in their countries. Let me show you this in the web page, the home page. Okay, so this is the Ugandan project, which is strengthening the capacity of institutions in Uganda to comply with the transparency requirements. So this is the home page. Here, there we go. This is the home page. So you can use the map. You can search using the map. For example, this is Uganda. And there we are. It gives us all these details, the project title, then it gives us the project details, project indicators. You're able to view and see all these details in this page. For example, this shows us the indicators of the capacity. Well, the indicators, you can see them very well. They are here. Those are all the indicators of this project. And what is very good about this platform is that it minimizes the rest by itself. You don't need to do that. And then you go straight to the next one, which is the project implementation. It shows you the status of the project implementation. As you can see for Uganda, most of the project activities here have been completed 100%. Those which have not been completed, they are to do with, for example, the surveys which have not been conducted, and that's why you see them, they are not completed, but the rest of the project activities have been completed. Go to the project documents, and that indicates the documentation of the project. There are a number of them, as you can see them here. The MOUs may be in sort of like draft because they're not signed. We uploaded them before they were signed, but we can upload the signed ones. And then you can see the project events. For now, we have only one event, which is for today, which is to do with this webinar. But if there are a number of them, you can be able to view them in this. You can be able to view them here in the events, yeah. So the country's information, you can be able to have, view all the information related to Uganda, for example, the population, all that, the total GHG emissions per sector, the transparency information, the national climate change policy, other transparency initiatives in Uganda. You can be able to view and see all those areas. For example, you can see that we have the RED Plus program. We have the NDC partnership. We have the Global Green Growth Institute support, and so on. And so basically, this platform gives you an understanding of all that could be ongoing in the country under the CBIT project. It's basically about that, and I thank you very much. In case of any question, I hope that you can share them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your interventions. We come rightly to the point where we're going to have a few questions. Basically, I will now direct the questions to the team. I'll direct most of them to Feli because they typically fall under the presentation that was given. But Feli, feel free to indicate others to chip in and to complement your interventions if you like. So one of the first questions is about the gender mainstreaming in the project implementation. So the audience would like to hear about a specific example of gender mainstreaming in the implementation of the project, and to also hear about elements that should be suggested for the implementers to ensure that gender is considered and mainstream throughout the implementation. So Feli, if you could say something about this, please unmute yourself and if you want to direct to someone else in the team, you're also free to do so.
Thank you. About gender mainstreaming, we started with gender sensitization so that people understand what gender is, because at first the impression was gender is all about sex, woman or man. But through the sensitization, we got to know a little more than what it was about. Then another thing, following the sensitization, we had a ride shop, which I've talked about, where this one was like a bit more detailed, going into the details of how do you develop tools which are engendered? How do you collect data which is engendered? How do you write reports which are? And that's why I also indicated that we have a procedure manual on mainstreaming gender in the greenhouse gas inventory and MRV process. So that manual is available for use, and it has details on how this can be done. How do you start from collection to reporting engendered information? And another thing for sustainability, we established gender focal points. Each of the sectors we have worked with a gender focal point there, and they were part of the sensitization, they were part of the training, but all through the project implementation, like when we were, like, for example, determining participation on events, for example, maybe the training and everything, we would encourage like being open to a balanced gender engagement, such that you're not only biased to maybe one sex or maybe one category of group of people, or the only thing is we're of course limited to people who are not over 60 for purposes of sustainability, since this is capacity building.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
I suppose, yes, I suppose this manual will be very interesting for many. So if it will be possible to share it also in the CBIT platform, I'm sure there will be many looking at it and getting inspiration for their own projects. The subsequent question asks if you could please share more information on to what extent the domestic MRV systems were developed. That is, what did you start with and where did you get into? Where did you manage what did you manage to reach with this domestic MRV system? Yeah. It's also related to your presentation, Feli, but you may direct to other in the team.
Thank you. First, maybe what we need to also clarify, for purposes of time, we did not collect primary data as the measuring point, but we worked with the existing secondary data available. So, and then this was compiled and the IPCC software, and we had emissions calculations calculated using the available data. So other than the report, we also had a completement assessment. We also had a method statement, as in giving details of how the whole process of how these inventories have come about. So I think that's about it that I can say. If any member of the PMU wishes to add or maybe CC it, would be nice.
Anyone wants to add to this that Feli already explained? Maybe
another thing, we also presented the improvement plans.
Yeah, this is Peter, a member of the panel. I just want to add quickly that first and foremost, the Uganda system was really in a nascent stage. So most of this investment, most of the investment of these activities in this project was at starting off. They developed manuals, they aggregated data. Most of the data were, being aggregated from what it used to be at sectoral level, data that wasn't, aggregated, when all over the place in different states of quality. A lot of time was invested in cleaning the existing data and then letting people identify what data sets were there and how they can make use of it. And then, of course, the investment, as Feli has talked about, in training people to identify, analyze, and report on the data that they have. So it's more of a really beginning phase of the MRV system, and that's why you can see a lot of time has been invested in looking at how can we sustain this project. What can we have a CBIT tool to make sure now we leverage on the work that we have done the past few months and move the Uganda MRV systems to the next stage, and that's it's going to be very key. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter and Feli. We now move on to the next question. It's about the private sector and asks, how was the private sector engaged in the GHG inventory and in the MRV processes? So Peter or Feli, please, would you mind enlighten us on this?
Thank you. During the training, all activities, we always have private sector and academia represented. And specifically, during the inventory or training for the inventory, we requested the CCD to identify organizations who could nominate participants so that at least we capture a bit of representation from the private sector. And in my presentation, I indicated we had 10 representatives from the private sector, different, at least covering the different NDC sectors during project implementation. So yes, we even have graduates from the private sector. Amongst the 62 people who graduated as experts, we have some representation from the private sector. And how we did it, there is already an existing relationship between the private sector and government, and the private sector are already like in networks, umbrella networks. And for this specific one, we mainly worked with Climate Action Network and their membership. So yeah, that's how we did it.
Okay. We can go to the next question, or if Peter wants to complement this, or any other of the panelists, please.
Just to complement that, the only thing with the private sector that we didn't accomplish with this project was what Feli offered in her presentation. She said we didn't have a formal arrangement. We didn't sign MOUs with non-state actors. That was the only thing that we didn't accomplish. We couldn't manage to accomplish given the circumstance we were working in. But other than that, we did affirmative action, as we did with gender, we did with private sector, and ensure that they participated in all of our engagements in the project, whether there was a training and data analysis and all kinds of engagements that we engaged this project. They participated.
Right. Thank you. We have another question from another participant, and it says, as an LDC, how is Uganda sharing its lessons learned and experience with, sorry for the typo, other fellow LDCs? And also, this person is also interested in learning more about the role of the Africa Innovations Institute and Vital Signs in the project. So could you please, Feli or Peter, please speak to these two questions about sharing experience with other LDCs and the role of African Innovations Institute and Vital Signs.
Yeah, so and perhaps maybe the African Innovations Institute people could speak to that more. But the Africa Innovations Institute, so the implementation structure of this project was that there were three major partners. There's the government in Uganda, as represented by the Ministry of Water and Environment, but specifically under the Climate Change Directorate, where the I should say the hosts of the program, with support from the Africa Innovations Institute, which was the Africa Innovations Institute is a Ugandan registered NGO that was executing, providing technical assistance for the execution of this project in Uganda. Now, the Vital Signs program is within CI, a program under Conservation International that is the technical lead for what I previously cited as, a portfolio of 11 CBIT projects at the Africa Field Division. So the Vital Signs provides the technical support and coordination and management with the accredited entity CI GF in this case. And so it's a bit of a complex structure, but the roles basically was working together in trying to deliver a technically sound outcome, but also an operational, compliance and management standards that were acceptable to the GEF. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that explanation. And any plans for sharing lessons learned and experience with other LDC countries in Africa or in other regions?
I can respond to that. So within Conservation International, amongst the CBIT projects that we have, amongst the 11 CBIT projects that we have about 4 projects that are also LDCs. We have a WhatsApp group. We constantly communicate and share reports. Other than that, also the CBIT Global Coordination Platform plays a very big role in this because we encourage all the projects that are implemented through Conservation International to share the reports and any knowledge management material on this platform. So any other country, whether LDC, SEED, a small island developing state, or any other country can still access all this material also via the Global Coordination Platform.
Thank you, Charity. Thank you for this contribution. Yeah, we thank you all for this intervention, for your interventions here, and we are very thankful also for you to share a lot of the project documents in the CBIT platform, and would appreciate if the possibility exists to share some of the manuals and some of the tools that were developed for activity data. I'm sure that will be useful for many other that are implementing their CBIT projects or that they will be implementing in the future. With this, I would like, we come to the end of the webinar, and I would like to thank everyone for staying until the end, and we will do our best to upload the recording of this webinar in the coming week. And there are a few more questions we couldn't answer because of we are now on the one and a half hour time that we set for the webinar. And we will try to get some more answers to those questions, and we will then upload the answers and the slides to the CBIT platform. So remember, you can always revisit this webinar and others in the CBIT platform in the events section. I wish you all a very good day, good continuation, and thank you. All the best from Copenhagen.